Hello and welcome to Pint Gaming. As always, I'm Gary. You know, in my past several videos, I feel like we've been way too thoroughly modern. As much as I love modern gaming, I feel like I've neglected my older consoles for far too long. As such, I think it's time that I unchain my older console children from the radiator and talk about some retro gaming goodness. For this episode, I'll be going back in time, where I'll be talking about the excellent Castlevania Rondo of Blood. The date is October 29th, 1993. Pogs are a really big deal, and the number one song is Dream Lover by a pre-glitter, seemingly uncrazy Mariah Carey. From the land of the rising sun comes a game that would be known by many as simply the greatest classic Castlevania game of all time. Critics throughout the years would hail this game as a true masterpiece, and it wouldn't be released in the US until a 2.5D remake was made for the PSP in 2007. On a side note, I really want to thank the person at GameStop who decided to put a barcode sticker on the insert inside of this case. Man, screw you, GameStop. Anyway, the TurboGrafx 16 was not a particularly popular console in the US. I didn't own one until my late 20s, and as a kid, I never ran into anyone who owned one. This game even needed an add-on called the TurboGrafx CD. So you can see why Konami might have been a little reluctant to sell this game outside of Japan. And this is a shame, because this game is fantastic. Let's take a look. The title screen is pretty basic, and when you press start, you're treated to what has to be the longest creaking door sound effect ever placed in a game. Just open the door! If you're a big fan of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, you're going to see a lot of familiar things in this game. This menu music, for example. In truth, Symphony of the Night borrowed most of its sprites from this game, and this game has a whole host of tributes to past Castlevania titles. You play as the latest descendant of the Belmont clan, Richter Belmont, and surprise, surprise, Dracula and his terrible castle are back, and you have to stop them. The graphics are pretty good for the time period, though not as sharp as they could be. This doesn't detract from the experience at all, however. Every sprite is detailed, and the backgrounds look really good, especially while scrolling in motion. Little Gary in 1993 wouldn't have believed a game could look this good. The animated cutscenes are definitely a product of their time. Many CD-based games from this era get a bad rep for these scenes, but they moved the story along, and were cutting edge when they were released. A certain other obscure console was notorious for animation of this variety in a pair of Zelda games, but that'll be a video for another day. The CD sound on this title is awesome. There are remixes of classic songs like Vampire Killer and Bloody Tears from the first two Castlevania games, as well as some good new tunes. Let's take a quick listen. The sound quality is great, and still holds up in 2021. But it's not totally perfect. The sound this boss makes after you beat her, for example. Talk about a dud. The gameplay in this game is unmatched in its genre. No classic Castlevania game comes close in my opinion. The game is challenging, but not cheap. Health items are placed in opportune places, and the sub-weapons are very well balanced. By pressing select, you have access to a powerful maneuver that differs with each sub-weapon. This can be a big boon in boss fights, but it never makes you overpowered. Speaking of boss fights, this game has them in spades. Take this one for example. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you 16-time world champion, Ric Flair. Alright, but in all seriousness, the bosses are a ton of fun. They all have patterns to figure out, and none are just completely unfair. If you recognize the patterns and improve your skills, you will make it past any point you're stuck on. That's what classic gaming's all about, folks. Tenacity and skill. Now that's not to say you're not going to experience some frustrating player deaths. This one saw me take a break for the rest of the evening.
death can be kind of a dick.
There are branching paths throughout the game, and finding them all is definitely a challenge. One criticism of the game is that, in certain levels, you have to fall down a random hole to find the new path. There's no indication what pit to fall down, and it's kind of unreasonable to expect gamers to try falling to their death in every hole in the level to figure out which ones may be secreting away a new level. Before the days of game walkthroughs, I don't really know how people would have figured this out. Thank you, gamers of the past, for figuring this out for us. We truly stand on the shoulders of giants. Die, monster. You don't belong in this world. Sorry, I had to. If you know, you know. Whether you're playing the 2.5D re-release or the classic through emulation, please try this game out. This game is everything that's great about classic Castlevania games. The sequel to Rondo of Blood is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's one of my top 5 games of all time, and playing this game really allows me to enjoy the sequel even more. Have you played Castlevania Rondo of Blood? If so, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below. This brings us to the end of yet another episode. If you enjoy our content, please hit the red subscribe button below, and we'd always appreciate a like. We're putting together our first Let's Play episode, and another episode of Pint Glass Travels is well underway. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.